Is the Pittsburgh Pirates offense sustainable? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of this wonderful show here on the Locked On Podcast Network that I've been doing now going into my fourth season. Obviously, we're in the middle of my fourth season of covering this wonderful baseball team here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where I'm bringing you your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates as we see fit. And it's been a very fun ride, and the ride continues today here on Thursday, April 11th. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP, and you can win every time with parts that fit your ride over at eBay Motors. So the Pirates have started this season 9-3. They've done a lot of things right. They haven't really even played perfect baseball, I would say, at this point. Like, you could make the argument that the baseball that they've played has not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination at all, but they've done a lot of things right, and you have to do a lot of things right to be 9-3. Now, obviously, after our show yesterday where we talked about David Bednar and what we saw on Tuesday, you would like the Pirates to be 10-2, and they really should be, but that's not really much of an argument to have at this point. One of the arguments that you can make about this team, though, is something that we kind of expected, I think, coming into this year, is that this offense was going to be a little bit different. This was going to be an offense that was finally going to take that next step because there are pieces in place for it to take the next step. It's not just Ke'Bryan Hayes and Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz doing all the heavy lifting anymore. You have Connor Joe, who's been an on-base machine to start this year. You have Edward Olivares, who has the most home runs on the team and doesn't even get regular starts on a daily basis. You have guys like Alika Williams, who right now, throughout the beginning of the season, have actually done pretty well with the bat and not just the glove. Jared Triolo has done some good things thus far. Andrew McCutchen seems to be picking it up after a slow start. You keep adding these things up, and I even forgot to mention Michael A. Taylor, who's had a very strong start to the season as well. And as these things continue to add up, and as you continue to look at how this offense is constructed and what they're doing right, you have to ask, though, is it sustainable with what they're doing? Now, obviously, with a lot of people that watch the Pirates, there's a lot of things you would notice and a lot of things that have been said on the broadcast that would highlight why the Pirates have had success. For starters, they have seen the second most pitches of any team in Major League Baseball this year. They've seen over 2,000 pitches this year already. They make opposing teams work. They make starters work. They make these bullpens go 3, 4, sometimes even 5 deep on any given day at this point. And that's just, the more pitches you see, the more opportunities you're getting to get on base via the free pass, to see pitches in the zone, and really just get more opportunities to put runs on the board. And that's what the Pirates have done so far. They've been one of the better offensive teams in all of baseball thus far. And that's not by accident. They've implemented a system at the plate that appears, one, right now to be working, and two, one that they think is going to work throughout the year. And making bullpens work, yeah, that's something that's going to play. That is something that you're going to look back on and say, man, the Pirates have been making these guys throw a lot of pitches. I believe it's 2,049 pitches that they've seen thus far. And to add to that, you would also say, well, how many pitches are they seeing on average in an at-bat? They're seeing 3.99 pitches on average per at-bat. They're being patient at the plate. They're waiting for what their spots. They're getting on base via the free pass. I know that they have to be up there in walks. And another thing is, too, is like just when you look up and down this lineup, it almost feels like these guys all know their role. They know where they sit in the lineup and what they need to do. Brian Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, and Ke'Bryan Hayes headline that top three, as they should. But they are the dominoes that start the domino effect with this lineup, because then you get to Jack Sawinski, you get to Andrew McCutchen, you get to Rowdy Tellez. Then you get to the third wave of Jared Triolo, Henry Davis, Edward Olivares, Connor Joe, Michael A. Taylor. And then you even have a fourth wave right now with Alika Williams. And I would even argue that you can make the idea that Jason DeLay, who is hurt right now, but could end up making an impact. Joey Bart was who was on my mind. Sorry that I said Jason DeLay right away. But Joey Bart has come into Pittsburgh and actually hit the baseball pretty well since he's come in. But I think also when you're asking the question, is the offense sustainable? It's hard to really predict that right now, just because the season is so young and we haven't really seen much of it yet. And we haven't also really seen it against any stellar starting pitching. I mean, I could still argue that the best pitcher that the Pirates have seen thus far this year is Jesus Luzardo, who they saw on opening day. Obviously, in the Baltimore series, they avoid Corbin Burns. In the Detroit series, didn't really get to see Detroit's best. I mean, you got to see Casey Mize, but he's still coming back from a ton of injuries. And in the other series, I mean, Washington doesn't have the strongest pitching staff in the world. And you make these arguments and you say, okay, they haven't really seen a ton of starting pitching yet this year. So what's going to happen when the Pirates do face a better starter or a team that just has a better starting rotation? Maybe we'll talk about that in the final segment of today's show against the Phillies this weekend. But when you look at what they're doing right now, I think that you can sit there and say, yeah, this could be sustainable. You're making other teams work through their rotation, through their bullpen, and you're doing it effectively. I mean, the Pirates are getting on base with walks quite a bit. They didn't do it in the Tuesday game. I believe the only walk on the entire day. I don't know if they did have that many walks on Tuesday. I actually don't remember. But overall in the season, they have. And the more and more that you make opposing teams pitch, like the Pirates have made opposing teams pitch, the more and more that success is just going to follow. I mean, these bullpens, we talk about it on this show all the time about keeping a bullpen fresh and having pitching options available at your disposal everywhere. And right now, the Pirates are forcing other teams to make those groups on their 26-man rosters work. And why is it working? Well, they're seeing the plate very well. They're seeing the ball very well. They're working themselves into hitters' counts. And in those big situations with 2 outs and runners in scoring position, the Pirates have obviously been one of the better teams at taking advantage of that. And a large reason of that is because, again, they're being patient at the plate. They're taking the pitches that they want to take, and they're hitting the pitches they want to hit. And that's just what they've been doing right now. And they're getting contributions from pretty much everybody. I mean, the only guys that I would argue that you're not getting real contributions from at the plate, like consistently, are Sawinski, Andrew McCutchen, and Henry Davis. But that the other 6 guys, that be Michael A. Taylor or Connor Joe, Reynolds, Hayes, Cruz, Tellez even. You're getting some pretty good at-bats from those guys every day. You're not getting these at-bats just once in a blue moon right now. You're getting these at-bats and quality at-bats from these guys every single day. And the only team right now that the Pirates are behind in the amount of pitches that they've seen is the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have played 2 extra games. So take that how you will. But I think that this offense could be sustainable. It's going to face its challenges when they face better starting pitching for sure, but that's not to say that it won't work. We haven't seen that yet. We might get a dose of it this weekend against the Phillies, and we'll see how it works. But for the Pittsburgh Pirates, if this is the offense that you want to run and it continues to work, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Andy Haynes, throughout his entire tenure as the hitting coach of the Pittsburgh Pirates, has drilled this into the heads of the players and the organization that he wants his guys to be patient at the plate, pick their spots, and pick those spots right. And now that there's more talent on the roster, maybe we're seeing that philosophy work out a little bit more than we initially thought it would. And the offense is there. I'm not really all that concerned about the offense at all. I think the concerns still lie in the starting rotation and the in the bullpen right now. But the bullpen, even being a strong unit, it's just because of injuries that really concern me. But the starting rotation is always going to be the biggest concern. But when you look at what this offense has done so far, I mean, this doesn't even include Leo Piguero, who's been mashing in AAA, Nick Gonzalez, who's also been having a pretty good start down there. Those guys could come up and make real impacts at some point as well. But if this is the philosophy that you want to have and you want to stick with, make sure that it continues to be implemented correctly and keep forcing these opposing pitchers to run that pitch count up, because that's what they've done so far, and it's resulted in a 9-3 start offensively, and it's resulted in runs on the board, and it's worked. So if it keeps working, use it. But I do say, if it stops working, then maybe try to change it up a little bit. But don't wait too long to change it up a little bit. I think that's the argument that I want to make about that. But we've seen the offense do really well so far. And I hope that it continues, and I think it's going to have to continue in this Philadelphia Phillies series, which we'll talk about in the final segment of today's show. But we're going to talk about the pitcher that will be hitting the hill for the Pittsburgh Pirates in Jared Jones, who will be going into his third start of the season, and he's flashed some good things so far. What has he done right, and what are his challenges that he'll face against the Philadelphia Phillies in his start tonight? We'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to talk about Policygenius and eBay Motors. Policygenius has checked life insurance off your to-do list in no time. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb, because Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. You talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step and easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may come with you if you leave your job. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance, and thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP, and you can win every time with parts that fit your ride, because passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. And for your Pittsburgh Pirates tonight, it will be Jared Jones on the hill once again for his third start of the year. And folks, I admit that through spring training, I did not want Jared Jones on the roster right away. He has far in between proved me wrong since I said that. Comes out on the team in spring from spring, has a phenomenal debut against the Miami Marlins with those 10 strikeouts. Followed that up, and it was great to see him do this in person. Follows that up against the Baltimore Orioles, a very strong Baltimore Orioles lineup, may I add, where he had 7 strikeouts. So 17 strikeouts already. And you look at what he's going to be facing in this Philadelphia Phillies roster and what he's done right so far. Well, right now, with anybody with a minimum of 100 pitches, Jared Jones is throwing strikes better than anybody. He's throwing strikes at a 74% clip right now, which leads all of Major League Baseball. That's some good stuff to hear because, yeah, that's what he's done well. He's filled the zone. He's made hitters look silly with the stuff that he's thrown between the fastball, the slider, and the changeup. And he's just looked really good thus far. And I think the Pirates did the right thing bringing him up right away because you're looking at what he's been able to do. And he just goes out there and he just pitches. That's all. He just feels like a confident guy every time he steps up to the mound. And Jared Jones is also one of those players that when you look at him right now, I mean, you look at the overall statistics and you'd say, whatever. 11 2/3 innings, 3.86 ERA, 0.94 whip, 17 strikeouts. But what I think is interesting, and you guys know that I love StatCast so much, When you look at what he's done so far, I mean, his fastball velo is on average at 97 right now. We know he can throw the ball hard. That's in the 95th percentile in all of Major League Baseball. He is in the 96th percentile at 40.3% in chase rate, 97th in whiff rate at 41.3, 92nd in K rate at 35.4, 85th percentile in walk rate at 4.2. And albeit he's done those things right. He's done a lot of things right. His expected batting average against 217, expected ERA 3.54, which are in the 60 and the 60 and 66 percentile. But what I found very interesting is when you look at run values, which is basically just the value of the pitches that they're throwing. Fastball value, you know it's going to be up there. It's +2 right now at 73rd percentile. His overall pitching value is 1 +1 at 68. His breaking run value, though, is in the 89th percentile thus far. So I find it interesting that he's been able to use the breaking pitches very well to complement the fastball that we already knew was an elite pitch. Now, the biggest thing that he's struggling with at this current moment is his average exit velocity is high, 91.2. He's giving up a pretty hefty barrel rate at 21.4, which is in the 2nd percentile. His hard hit percentage is 57.1, and his ground ball rate is 35.7. Those numbers will obviously come down with a larger sample size, but it is a little bit concerning that he's hitting so many barrels, but I don't think it's the biggest issue. And StatCast has also said that he's thrown 4 separate pitches this year, a four-seamer, a slider, a curveball, and a changeup, obviously using the four-seamer and the slider more often than not, 46.7% on the four-seam, 40.2% on the slider, the curveball at 8.3%, the changeup at 4.7%. But you look at what he's done and what he's been able to do, and when you're parrying a pitch in the slider that he's thrown 68 times compared to 79 with the four seam, when you're throwing a slider that averages out at 88 miles per hour with your 97 mile per hour fastball, folks, that's a pitch that's going to work in this league. It's all about velocity now. That's what it's all about. And I know a lot of you guys might not really care all that much about vertical movement, but he also has one of the best vertical moving fastballs in all of baseball. Curveball is up there at 3.1 inches. The slider is 1.5. The fastball is 2.5. Horizontally, 3.7 inches of horizontal break on his slider. That's the stuff that you like to see. His spin rates are really good. And that's where you get more into the advanced stuff about why Jared Jones has been so good. But he's been good just because he's being confident. He's throwing his stuff. He's throwing the fastball and the slider combination well. If he can keep missing barrels, if he can find a way to miss less barrels, bring down that average exit velocity against a little bit, and just keep doing everything else that he's doing and maybe induce a little bit more ground balls on the ground ball rate, folks, Jared Jones has the potential to be a top option in this rotation no matter what. Now, obviously, he's going to face a Phillies team that has some talent on it. I mean, you're looking at it. We don't have a lineup, obviously, just yet. But you look at this Phillies roster, Brandon Marsh is going to be one of those guys that I think could cause problems. Bryce Harper, obviously, always going to cause problems. Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto, Bryson Stott, Johan Rojas, Whit Merrifield, Kyle Schwarber. The Phillies are a loaded baseball team. This will be the best lineup that I think that Jared Jones has seen so far. Yeah, you can make the argument about the Orioles lineup, but I think the Phillies lineup is just better, personally, at this moment. I mean, now we'll see what happens with the addition of Jackson Holiday. But I just would say if I was Jared Jones, just try to eliminate the home run ball, miss some of these barrels, and just pitch your pitches, man. I mean, he's had 2 starts and had at least 7 strikeouts in both of those starts. So we'll see what he can do tonight against the Phillies. I mean, it's going to be a challenge for him, but it's a challenge I think he's going to more than welcome at this point. I mean, you look at what he's done so far, no reason to say he's slowing down. And speaking of the Philadelphia Phillies, we do have a series preview for you as the Pittsburgh Pirates will head to Philadelphia tonight to kick off a 4-game set against their in-state rivals. But before we do talk about that, folks, we're going to talk about FanDuel. Well, again, if you bet the Pirates money line throughout the season, you're probably at plus money right now with the Pirates being 9-3. And you can do so over at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon is your place to be because it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for, folks? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Alrighty, folks, and welcome to the third and final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every day. And the Pirates, as mentioned, will head to Citizens Bank Park this weekend to take on the Philadelphia Phillies, a team much like the Orioles that I think will be fully ingrained in the World Series conversation and definitely the playoff conversation. Pirates have yet to lose a series this year. They obviously won every series up until the 2-game set against the Detroit Tigers, in which they split. So they're 4-0-1 in series right now, or 3-0-1, sorry, in series right now. Meanwhile, you look at this Phillies team, and they're 6-6 so far. Obviously, have played some pretty tough teams to start the year. I mean, they opened the season against the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, the Braves winning that series, I believe. Then they play Cincinnati, and Cincinnati beat the Phillies in the series. They get the bounce backs, though, in the last 2 against Washington and St. Louis. Winners, of course, of 4 of their last 6 and 5 of their last 7 games, or 5 of their last 8 games. So they enter this kind of in a weird spot. The Phillies enter having pretty much lost to all the good teams they've played, and won against all the bad teams they've played. Meanwhile, of course, the Pirates 9-3, and the pitching matchups in this series are actually quite fun to me. Tonight, you'll get Ranger Suarez against Jared Jones. We already talked about Jared Jones at length in that second segment. Ranger Suarez has had quite the start to the year as well. I mean, 2 games, 11 innings pitched, a 4.09 ERA, .073 whip. Suarez has always been a pretty consistent guy since his debut. 3.43 career ERA, has played his entire career in Philly, usually sits around that 3 to 4 ERA range, has some pitches that are going to be tough to hit, and it's a lefty, but Pirates have faced a ton of lefties this year already, so I don't think that that'll be much of an issue to worry about in tonight's game. You'll also get Bailey Falter in another left-handed matchup for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes, it's starting to give me a headache that the Pirates are facing all these left-handed pitchers, as they'll face Christopher Sanchez on Friday. 4.82 ERA for Sanchez right now, 9 strikeouts and 9 1/3, a 1.16 whip, career 4.18 ERA guy. Again, another lefty. Then it'll be Marco Gonzalez for the Pittsburgh Pirates on Saturday against Spencer Turnbull, I believe, for the Philadelphia Phillies. Turnbull, of course, one of the bigger guys that Detroit thought that they would have for a while. In his first season for the Philadelphia Phillies, had a terrible 2023 with a 7.26 ERA. Only, of course, got 7 starts that year. Has not made more double-digit starts since 2020. So we'll see what the Pirates can do there as Marco Gonzalez faces him. And then on Sunday, it'll be 2 of the top pitchers in the National League going at each other, in Mitch Keller and Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, albeit having an 0-2 record on the year, has a 1.89 ERA through his first couple starts. Mitch Keller, obviously, 5.29 ERA, but had a very good start on Monday against that Detroit Tigers team. And it's interesting, again, that you just look around at what the Phillies have done well so far. Brandon Marsh is hitting the cover off the baseball, 333 average and a 359 on base percentage. You look at Trey Turner, who leads the team in hits with 13. Harper had three home runs, I believe, all in the same game. I don't remember if they were all in the same game or not. Obviously, you look at some of the I mentioned some of the other guys, like Trey Turner is going to be an issue. He's sitting at a 277 average, but their offense has not been that great so far. Only a couple people on their team are really hitting the baseball very well, and that would be Brandon Marsh at 333, Real Muto's at 289, and Trey Turner's at 277. Everybody else after that is well into the 200s. And I know it's very, very early, and this is still a Phillies lineup that I think can be scary. It's a team that can be scary. But when you look at what the Pirates have to do here, just keep getting these quality starts. You've gotten 6 of them from your starting pitchers, and let your bullpen do the rest. And the offense, I think, will come along no matter what. I think it's a unit right now that is just working with what they've got, and they're doing exactly what they want to do. They're being patient at the plate. They're making these pitchers pitch. Because I'd be honest with you, I'm really only scared tonight and Sunday about the pitching matchups for this team. They've already proven to me that they can hit lefties well. They faced 2 of them this weekend in Suarez and Christopher Sanchez. Spencer Turnbull doesn't scare me at all. So this could be a series where you see a lot of runs put up on the board between the Pirates and the Phillies. Of course, I'll be watching all the action, and we'll be back tomorrow as well, talking about the results of tonight's game and looking towards the weekend and some other topics of note. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Follow me on Twitter right there at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms Monday through Friday, and it is free and available to you as always. Make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, the 24/7 streaming channel, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Folks, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. I'll see you in tomorrow, but until then, see you on the flip side.